Excellent. Okay, so tonight we're talking about maximizing results with human design. So first of all, I guess some of you might be asking, what actually is human design? So we're going to start off with that first. We'll just quickly run through how to get a chart. We're going to talk about why you might want to use human design with your clients. When you have a chart, what to actually look for in the chart, how to use that information in your session, and what to focus on if you were to just choose one thing. And then, of course, we'll have a bit of time for Q&A at the end. Sound good? Awesome. Okay, so human design is a system that reveals your unique energetic makeup. It's based on your birth data, so your date, your time, and your place of birth, just like astrology. And it provides insight to your personality, strengths, weaknesses, and potential. So it is a wonderful system for really getting to the bottom of who the real authentic you is. And it's a great tool for that reflective process of uncovering the real you and beginning to understand what in your experience and your beliefs and your feelings actually probably belong to somebody else or are a result of conditioning from the external world. So human design itself is a bit like astrology, numerology, the Enneagram, I Ching, they all got together and had a baby. So it's a wonderful system. It is a really in-depth system with just layer upon layer upon layer. And tonight, my goal is to give you just enough information for the things that I found to really make a difference in the chart so that you can use it without getting confused. Okay, so let me know if I achieve that goal by the end of it. And if I'm not achieving it as we go through, let me know if you need clarification on anything. All right, so in my experience, human design really has been that crucial domino that has set in motion the transformation and the breakthroughs, especially with those trickier clients issues. So I'm going to talk about a particular client as we move through, but I'm going to talk about myself first of all. So my story, if for those of you that don't know me, my name's Vicky Santiago, and I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and a business breakthrough coach. And I always knew that I had just that something that held me back from really reaching my full potential. I had done lots of businesses in the past. Ever since I was 15 years old, I've worked for myself. And there've been times when I've had managerial roles in other people's businesses. And I would get really frustrated with myself about why I could run someone else's business better than I could run my own. It just wouldn't make sense to me. It was like, why can I suddenly just have so much success and take so much action when I'm running someone else's business? And of course, they all loved it, the owners. But when it's me and I'm doing the same work, the same business, why can't I quite break through and get myself going like I had done in those other situations? And so when I trained to be a clinical hypnotherapist, that was the first thing on my list, is like, right, this is what I'm doing. This is my passion. This is my love. And no matter what, I'm going to make this a success. So I knew that I needed to get through whatever that block was, whatever that thing was that was causing me to play small, basically. So I did so much work. I've done, hours and hours and hours of hypnotherapy, hours of coaching, paid thousands and thousands of dollars to a coach to work with them for a year, specifically to help get through this block. And I did get lots of wonderful work, but still the block was there. I would find myself holding myself back. I was self-sabotaging. I mean, if you want an example of the kind of things that I would do, about 4 years ago, I don't know if any of you guys know the name of a guy, Pat Flynn. He's a bit of a guru, godfather in the online business space. Anyway, out of the blue one day, I get this big box in the mail. And I open it up, and it's a full podcast system of microphone and the arm and the pop blocker and like the whole set for creating a podcast. And Pat offered to personally review and feedback my 5th episode. That was 4 years ago, and I never started that podcast. I wanted to do it. I was excited to do it. You can't get a better sign from the universe than a podcasting guru sending you a startup kit, right? And yet I just could not get myself to take action. So that's an example. When I say self-sabotaging, that's the kind of thing I was doing, right? So many ideas on an endless current, starting new things. And as soon as it got hard, oh, I've got this other idea. Actually, I should be doing that thing. And oh, I've got this other idea. Oh, I should be doing that thing. And never actually fully maximizing my potential in anything that I was doing. Until I found out about human design. So it came into my world a few years ago, but it wasn't quite the right time for me. And it wasn't till this year it popped back into my awareness, and suddenly everything clicked and made sense. I started to find out some things about myself, like, oh, right here, this white part, my open head center. When you have an open head center, that means you are basically a channel for ideas. So anywhere you go, these ideas are going boom, 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 boom. And guess what? The majority of those ideas aren't even yours to take action on. So that was a massive aha moment for me, was actually learning, oh, I don't have to take action on all these ideas, and I don't have to feel guilty for not acting on them either. So that was a massive aha moment. But what really changed everything was when I started to work with Justine. Now, again, Justine and I have been friends for about 4 years now, and we've had lots of opportunities to hang out, and we've done, things together, been over to HypnoBiz together and done all of these really fun things. But this year was the first time that we actually started collaborating and working together. And everything came into place for me. Whether it was working on a project with Justine or whether it was just having been around her, I found that I was suddenly taking action. I had a really clear path in my mind of where I wanted to go and what I needed to do to get there. And I felt like that was what I wanted, and I was just acting on it instead of having these voices calling me in different directions all the time. So that was amazing. Of course, I noticed it. I acted on it. That was great. But it wasn't until I found human design that I actually really understood what was going on. So for me, you can see this is my human design graph here. And what I realized was that I am what's called a triple split. And we will go into this later on, so don't panic. But basically what that means is that my energy is split into 3 chunks, and they're divided from each other, so they won't communicate with each other. And what Justine has done for me is she has this little piece here. So when we're together working on a project, what that means is that, like that cheesy Tom Cruise movie, she completes me. So because when I'm in Justine's energy, I can borrow this part from her. That means then that I've got a connection from my this part of my head up here, which is all about ideas and concepts. That connects through to my throat, which is about expression and manifesting. And then because of Justine, that connects down through to my solar plexus, which is emotions, but also this is my power center. And it connects through here to my sacral, which is the center for life force and creation. So as you can see now, in the past, I was split up into 3 bits. Now I've got this beautiful flow of energy creation through my power going up, and my throat and my concepts all coming together, all working together, so that I'm getting the ideas, I'm getting the direction, I'm getting the life force energy, and then everything pushes here to the throat where you actually manifest it into the world. So I had all the ideas before, couldn't fully act on them. I wanted to create stuff and I was excited about it, couldn't finish it and get it out there into the world. Does that make sense?
Can I just say that is the most romantic thing anybody has ever said to me? So I'm going to keep that close.
Awesome. So yeah, this for me has been a game changer, because now all those places where I held myself back in the past, admittedly, I haven't started a podcast yet, but I am going to. But I'm getting out there, where before I would get stuck with deciding on the right package to offer, the right niche to choose. Well, guess what? Now I've got multiple. I've got 5 different income streams on the go, and you can't stop me. Like, honestly, I'm so excited, and I'm just getting stuff done, right? Justine, you'll agree, the last couple of weeks, I've just been like, boom, boom, absolute machine, getting stuff done and out there, which is, oh my gosh, after so many years of struggle, it's a real relief. Alrighty, so the core concept to know about human design is it is all about alignment. As I said to you before, it's about starting to realize your true authentic self and letting go of all of the stuff that's been put on you, all of those things that you think you should do and the ways you think you should be. So in alignment with that, with everything that we say tonight, the key thing is to take what resonates and leave what doesn't. Okay, this is not about putting anyone into a box. It's simply a tool for reflection, where maybe it will shine the light in a way that you hadn't thought about something in that way before. So as great as human design is for working on ourselves, it's amazing, but these ideas are also really handy for knowing with your clients as well. So that's why I want you to have your own chart handy today, because I think you'll find it helpful to actually refer back. And as I talk about the kinds of things to look for with clients, you can have a look and see how that shows up for you as well. So as I mentioned before, human design, it is a multi-layered system, and I want to try and keep things simple today. So there is a lot more that we can get into at a later time, but tonight, and especially if you know human design, you might be thinking, oh, what about this and what about that? Tonight, I'm really focusing on that context of having an idea of how your client ticks so that you can help them in the clinic. Okay, and there are opportunities to work with me if you want to go deeper. So I'll give you guys my email address at the end tonight, and you can keep in touch if you want to come to some more of my workshops or find out a bit more. All right, so let's get into the basics of human design. So if you haven't got your chart already, there's the link there to go and get one. You do need the birth date, the time, and the place. If you're not sure about the birth time, try and get an idea, at least if it was in the morning, the afternoon, or evening. Worst case scenario, put in midday and see if it makes much difference. Generally speaking, if it's a few hours, I found it might change a few bits and pieces. For example, you might have, let's just go back to here. You might have some of these planets might have different numbers, or maybe some of these lines here might be colored in slightly differently. But I found the bigger overarching concepts haven't usually changed that much. So for the context of what we're talking about with working with a client, it's not a make or break scenario if some of the coloring in is slightly different on the lines, right? Okay. The next question is, should you get permission from the client in order to run their chart? That comes down to your personal choice.
All right, so is it just me or? Okay, no,
She's gone.
She'll be back in a moment. I know it's very, very windy in Auckland. It's crazy here for internet. Oh, shit.
Sorry, I'm back. I am back. Sorry, guys. Okay, has everybody got the screen there? Awesome, fabulous. Okay, so we're talking about getting permission to run a chart. If you don't want to confuse the clients by bringing up something else, or you think perhaps they're very, should we say, analytical clients and they might not be open, then I like to go into, I use SP, so I go into super conscious, I connect with the client's super conscious, and I ask permission from their higher self. That's something you could consider doing as well. At the end of the day as well, though, it's interesting, if you look up online, there's lots of people who run charts for celebrities and things. I'm pretty sure they haven't asked permission to do that. All right, so looking at the anatomy of a chart. So when you pull up a chart from something like, my body graph or one of those places, it will look something like this. So what we've got here is quite a bit of information. As we go through those, as I say, I'm going to point out that you'll want to be paying attention to, but just to give you a basic idea. And within the body graph, we have got all these different centers. So the centers are the shapes. Okay, and then inside the shapes, you'll notice the numbers. These numbers are called gates. And these specifically relate to the hexagrams of the I Ching. So when I said that the I Ching and numerology and Enneagram and everything had a baby, like I'm talking literally. Okay, so these are gates. And then the lines between them, when they're colored in, are called channels. So that's some of the lingo there. When something is colored in like this, it's called defined. And what that means when it's defined is that you have consistent energy in whatever the theme of that center is or that gate is. When it's white like this, it's called undefined. And so we all have all of the chart. The question is simply what's defined and what's undefined. Because when you have it defined, you have consistent energy there. And when you have it undefined, then you have variable energy there. Make sense? The other things that you'll notice here is we've got these lines down the side with the planets. So this talks about the location of the planets at the time of your birth. So that's the side here. So the colors vary depending on the branding of the person you're getting the chart with, but generally speaking, it's black. So the black means that this was where it was at the time of your birth. Okay, and it's the same here. You'll notice the black in the channels. That just relates, you can see, where's one here, 48. That's black for me there. And then you can see I've got 48 down here on the black side. So that's all that means. The other side here is where the planets were, like in astrology, 88 days before you were born. Now, there are reasons and quantum mechanics and all sorts of things going into why and how, which again, that's a lesson that we probably don't have time for tonight, but it's all to do with neutrinos and stuff and sorts of wonderful things happening, and how at that particular moment, 88 days before our birth, that's when our sort of DNA starts to settle into how it's going to express itself. For now, just know that the black side means that this is more what's found in your sort of outward personality, and the red side is more unconscious. This is the side where you might still have these qualities, but maybe you don't notice it in yourself, but maybe other people notice it in you. Yeah. Okay. What you'll also get is some information. So as we go through, you can see there's a few different types, and we're going to look at quite a few of these today. So we're going to look at type. We're going to look at strategy, your not self theme, and your signature and your definition. We're going to leave the last three for today because they are really important and really useful. But in this context of working with a client, I feel that the above ones are perhaps a little bit more important, again, with that goal of keeping things simple. Okay, so right now you don't need to worry about what they are, but just simply you'll know what to look for when you see this side of the information. Alrighty. So when do we use human design? So working in the client clinic setting, I found it really helpful to work with clients who've got a history of self-sabotage, of victimhood, of trauma. My own story was having a very controlling mum who liked to use shame as her weapon and had very clear ideas of what one should believe and think and how one should act. And so for me, I had a lot of conditioning on me, a lot of things that was actually my mum's opinions, and I hadn't realized that they weren't mine. So there's an example where human design was really useful to start to shake that off and realize, well, who am I really, and how do I really think and feel about things? It's really useful as well with clients who aren't taking action or who need help with motivation. It's useful with clients who are struggling to make decisions, or perhaps they don't really know what is right for them or what they want. I found it really useful to work with clients when issues won't shift or they keep reoccurring, and you kind of tried all the hypnosis tools that you can think of, but there's still something missing. That's when I found this really, really useful as well. And honestly, I recommend using human design with everyone, including yourself, because it's really, really fun. And it's a great way to maximize the impact of what you do, simply by helping ourselves to understand our clients better and how they tick, and understand ourselves better as well. So let's look at a quick case study here of how I used human design with one of my clients. So I've been seeing for about a year all up this lovely young girl, I will call her P, and she came to me for nail biting. So amazing client, you know, suggestible. We had this fantastic session. She was definitely motivated to change. I was really impressed. And from the very beginning, she drew my attention because at age 15, she not only reached out to me to inquire herself, she also booked, managed all the communication, and paid for the sessions from her own money. And at 15, I was quite impressed by that, actually. So you can't say that she wasn't motivated and that she didn't want to change. So I saw P, she came, and we, as I say, we had these great sessions. She stopped nail biting immediately. She felt amazing until about 4 months later, she messaged me and she said, I started nail biting again. And so she came back in, we did some more work. It was great. She stopped nail biting. 6 months later, she's, you know, sending me photos of her nails at her school ball, and she's really excited. And then a month later, she messages me and she's like, oh, I'm nail biting again. And so by this point, by the time I'd seen her like on 4 different occasions over the spread of a year, and I'd sort of, okay, I've done this tool, I've done that tool, we've done golden thread till the cows come home, you know, we've done parts, negotiations, and we've talked about secondary gain, like we've done everything I can think of. And in the end, I was like, oh, what else can I do with her? So before she came into the clinic for the final time, I pulled up her human design chart. And what caught my attention was particularly these white areas that she has here. So when something is white or undefined, because the energy there is inconsistent, it means that we're more likely to pick up conditioning in those areas, right? So the G center here, this is the center for identity, direction, purpose, love. So I was prepared going into that session to look for themes where she would bring up something that suggested that she was feeling pressure around her identity, around her direction, especially as by this time she had just finished high school and was starting to go off to uni and figuring out what was she doing next in life, right? So there was quite a lot of identity and direction talk that came up. The other thing I paid attention to here was her white solar plexus for the emotions, because emotions, yes, we deal with them with the golden thread, absolutely. But again, I just knew to really pay attention to any feelings that were coming up for her, that maybe, again, she was feeling other people's feelings or being affected by other people's feelings and taking them on as her own. So in the session, yes, I asked her about the feelings. We got to the bottom that what was coming up with her whenever she started biting her nails again was that feeling of being anxious. And as we were doing this talk and I was looking for these themes around identity and self-love, is she anxious because she's, nervous about going off to uni because she's not sure if she's going to be good enough, for example? Is there something there going on? Actually, what was coming up for her, yes, there was a lot of anxiety and sadness around leaving her friends and things changing. But what made the difference with regards to really getting into that linchpin about her motivation of what is it that she needs to do to finally let go of the nail biting? And she said it herself, but because I knew to listen for it, boom, I knew it. There we go. That's what we need to do. She mentioned about how she wanted to be seen when she was going off to uni and doing her practicals. She wanted to be seen as a grown-up professional like the others, not like a little child who bit her nails. So I knew right there what we needed to do for that session, more than working on the anxiety, was we actually needed to work on her getting rid of that old identity of being a young kid and stepping into her new adult life. And so we did this whole piece of work, inner child work, like the golden thread, but leaving that nail biting in the past with that childhood identity. And that's really what made the difference. And so far, so good. No more nail biting. So hopefully this helps to explain. Again, it helped me to decide a bit more about the tools that we would use, but ultimately it just gave me a bit of understanding about her and how she might tick, so that when I was in this session, I knew the kinds of questions to ask and the themes to listen for. All right, so let's get into human design. Let's start off, first of all, talking about the energy types. Now, if you look at human design, this is probably the thing that you'll find the most. It's the most common thing that people do talk about. If you say, oh, hi, what's your human design? Somebody will say, oh, I'm a generator, or oh, I'm a projector. So when they say that, they're talking about their energy type. If you are only going to remember one thing about human design, have a play with this one, okay? Because this is one of the things that makes the most difference in life overall with regards to living in alignment versus living in an inauthentic way. Okay, so there are 5 types in human design. So this is about your overall energy, your aura, so to speak. So those 5 types are the generator, the manifester, the manifesting generator, the projector, and the reflector. So me, I'm a generator, and funnily enough, so is Justine. So when you're looking at the information, you'll see it here, type generator. And we'll just tell you straight out what it is. So a generator is, I'd say, what the most common type. And the generator is like the workhorse, the go-to guy. The generator is the one who puts in the hard yards and gets stuff done. The generator's strategy when it comes to knowing what the right thing to do is, when it comes to making decisions, we have a strategy. And for generators, it's to respond. Generators are generators because they have their sacral center defined. When we get to the centers, I'll show you which one that is. But that sacral center, if you remember, that one is the one of creation and of life force. And so generators generally have quite a good connection with their gut. So they'll have, if you ask a generator, do you want to eat pizza? They might know in their gut, yes or no. Maybe it's a uh-huh or an uh-uh. Maybe it's a feeling of pulling towards or of pushing away or of lifting or of heaviness. But they'll generally have that feeling in their gut. It'll be a yes, no, black and white answer. So a generator's job, if they're making a decision, is to listen to their gut and to see black and white. Is it yes? Is it no? If it's nothing, it's either a not yet, in which case for us, it's basically a no because we're acting in the moment. Or if they're struggling to be aware of what their gut's saying, then they probably have some conditioning about it, right? We've all been taught that we should make decisions with our heads, not with our guts, right? So if you know that you're working with a generator client, then you've got two ways to approach asking them questions. The first thing is to try and ask them questions that have a yes/no answer. And the second thing is to just say to them, especially if they're saying, oh, I don't know, to say, hey, listen to your gut. What's it telling you? So we can frame the questions that we use according to that type that we're working with. Now, all types have, as well as a strategy, they have a signature feeling, which comes up when they are in alignment. And they have what's called a not self theme, which is a more negative feeling, which comes up as a red flag of like, hey, you're not being your true self here. So the generator's signature feeling is satisfaction. So when they take aligned action, in other words, when they are doing things that light them up, they're responding to things outside of them, and they're using all their energy throughout the day, and they're finishing that day feeling satisfied, then you know that they are living in alignment with themselves. Now, when it's talking about responding, what that means is literally a generator is designed, again, not to make decisions from up here, but to see something out there in the world and to actually say, hey, do I want this? Yes or no? What's my gut telling me? Right? So it's not about making something up in your mind. It's about responding to what's around you in the environment. The not self theme is frustration, which means if someone's feeling frustrated, like a client, you say, oh, how's this making you feel? They say, oh, I'm feeling frustrated. Well, then you've got a clue there that they're acting out of alignment with their true self. Maybe they're rushing into something. Maybe they're getting stuck making decisions up here, doing things that they feel they should, choosing activities that drain them rather than things that light them up. So a generator's role in the world to live up to their full potential is to actually just do the things that light them up and make them feel good. All right, next up, we've got a manifester. So manifestors, their strategy is to inform and initiate. So the manifestors, as the name suggests, are the ones who are designed to get out there and initiate stuff. We are, in our current society, very much a manifestor aligned society, right? It's all about the doing rather than the being. So for the manifestors, that's absolutely, you get an idea, take action on it. The key piece here, though, is to actually bring in informing people first. So in a business context, for example, if you're a manifestor, instead of just saying, hey, I've done this new program, you might want to take a few steps before that and say, hey, I'm thinking of doing this new program, and dropping some seeds about it first. So that's an example of inform and initiate. So manifestors have this internal pressure to take action on the things that inspire them. And the other fun thing about manifestors, to know if you have a manifestor client, is they do not like being told what to do. Okay. So just be aware of that. If you've got a manifestor, for sure, say, what do you want? What do you think you should do, right? Not, I think you need to do this. Okay, a manifestor's signature feeling is peace. So they'll achieve that feeling of peace when they trust themselves, when they trust others, and when they have the freedom to do whatever they're called to do. Their not self theme is anger. So if they're being told what to do, they're probably going to react with anger. If they're feeling like they have to ask permission to do what they want to do, they're probably going to feel anger. That anger can also come from the fear that their actions won't be good enough, fear of being misunderstood, all that good stuff as well. Right, the next one we have is the manifesting generator, which is a bit of a combination of the two in a way. So it's creating a combination of that generator joy and sustainable energy and the manifestor urge to initiate and start new things. So they've got the strategy of informing and responding, to multitask, to be multi-passionate, to move really quickly when something lights them up. But it's not just taking action, they've got to respond as well to something that's going on too. So they can have that feeling of peace and of satisfaction. Manifesting generators aren't here to do what society tells them to do, right? They're free spirits. If you are a manifesting generator, you don't worry about like niching down your business, right? You have the energy, the urge to initiate things, everything you need to work in lots of different areas, for example. So peace comes from feeling free and feeling seen. Satisfaction comes from putting in aligned effort and mastery. The generator side loves mastery. And watch out for that not self theme of anger and frustration. So frustration when you're putting in the effort and not getting results. Angry when you're not informing or initiating correctly. So again, when you're working with your clients, just be aware of when these particular feelings come up as a little flag to grab your attention that they're probably got some conditioning. They're working with shoulds there or somebody else's ideas of how they should be. All righty, next up, we've got the projector. So a projector's strategy is to wait for the invitation. So projectors have got they've got, generally speaking, quite a few undefined areas, especially an undefined sacral. So they don't have that consistent Energizer Bunny energy. Okay, projectors are here to guide. They are here to show up and do really deep work, but to have lots of work-life balance, to give themselves time to rest, recover, explore, grow, and play. So by waiting for the invitation, they can stay in alignment and use their energy at its best. Okay, so that invitation, it can be a formal invitation, a request, a message, a question, an energetic invitation. This is really good to know for working with projector clients because you just need to say, I invite you as part of what you're doing. I invite you to book a session. I invite you to do your after session tasks. I invite you to stop eating sugar, right? Okay, a projector, when they're in alignment with themselves, will feel that feeling of success. Success comes from feeling recognized, valued, and appreciated. And again, working with a projector client, part of our job can be to make sure that they recognize, value, and appreciate themselves. And that will really help with that feeling of success as well. And it can just be a really little thing. Like my eldest son is a projector. And I have to remember every now and again to say to him, like, hey, thanks. I just want to take a moment and recognize you for taking responsibility for getting yourself ready for school in the morning. And he just lights up. That's the validation that he needs, right? Okay, the not self theme is bitterness. So that comes with not being seen, not being recognized, not being valued. And it can come as a sense of resentment as well. They just want to be allowed to be themselves. Okay, the reflector. The reflector is different from the rest in that the reflector has all of their centers undefined. So that means that they are amazing channels, amazing guides. They are here to reflect back at us. Okay, so they really are here to experience life at a deep, deep level. So because of that, there's quite a bit of time that they need in order to process things. As you can see from the chart, like in astrology, we have the planets at the time of our birth, but of course the planets are still moving every day, right? So every day as the planets move in and out of our energy, they can affect us, but they will of course affect the reflector even more deeply. The transits are much more important perhaps to a reflector to really work their way through because of how they're affected by those transits. They're going to find that things will change on a cycle, usually to do with the lunar cycle. So for a reflector to really make a decision that is amazing for them, especially those bigger life decisions, it's actually really good for them to allow a full cycle to pass. So they've kind of gone through all the experience, all of the feelings before they make a decision. Their signature feeling is surprise, and their not self is disappointment. So this is better than I expected, and this is worse than I expected. Okay, those are the two things to look out for. Now, it's important to know too, reflectors are only 1% of the world. So the chances of meeting one are reasonably rare, but they are amazing, amazing beings. Fun fact, so Sandra Bullock, the actress, is a reflector. And there's a theory out there that maybe that's why she's such a good actress, right? Because she doesn't have a lot of her own consistent energy. She can literally channel and mirror back the energy of any role that she takes on. Okay, so as we can see here, vast majority, we've actually got manifesting generators and generators, vast majority, followed by projectors, and then manifestors, and then just that tiny little piece of reflectors. Okay, so let's quickly move through the centers now. So the centers are all of these lovely shapes that you'll see on the body graph. They are similar to the chakras, but there's just a couple different. So there are 9 centers altogether. So there's the head center, the ajna, the throat, the G center, the ego or the heart center, the solar plexus, the sacral, the root, and the spleen. So each of these centers has a different theme. So the head is the source of ideas, inspiration, and questions. The ajna is mental processing and concepts. The throat is the way we communicate and express ourselves, and as I mentioned, manifestation as well. The G center is about identity, and it's that magnetic center that pulls us towards what we love. The ego center is our willpower and our ability to stay motivated. And what I think is about 25% of the world have defined in their ego center. So actually there's a large percentage of people who don't have that consistent access to that willpower. So that's kind of interesting to be aware of. The spleen. Spleen is where our fears are. It's that survival center. It's knowing what feels healthy to us and intuition in the moment. The sacral center is our life force energy. It's our sexuality, reproduction, and power. The solar plexus is our emotions, our pleasures, and romance. And the root is our grounding, as well as the pressure to do things. Okay, so defined centers are where we have consistent access to the themes of those centers, where we transmit energy from and what we lend to others. So when you're looking at a chart, look to the defined centers for the gifts that you can rely on. So where you have a defined center, you will have some of the defined gates. Now, each gate has its own theme as well. We won't get deep into that. That's another whole layer. But just for now, know that there's just all this consistent life force energy moving through those defined centers and through the gates that are defined in your centers. Now, your undefined centers is where we have inconsistent energy, and they also amplify the energy of those around us. So as I mentioned earlier, having that open head center means that I am channeling all these ideas, including ideas that are supposed to be for other people, not me. In the same way, if I had my emotion center undefined, then when I was around other people, I could be at risk of taking on other people's emotions or being really affected by other people's emotions. So for our undefined centers, we want to look at the ones that are white. They can, as you can see here, have a gate in there that's defined. That's not a problem. That is all good. It's still an undefined center for our purposes. So looking at this undefined centers, because they are the areas where we're most likely to have conditioning, that's where I really recommend that you start looking at when you're looking at the chart. Okay, so for me, it was quite eye-opening to understand about having this open head center and having all those ideas that I didn't need to worry about actioning. The other piece of it for me was having this undefined root center. So this center gives a lot of pressure to hurry. So here I was, if you can imagine, with all of these ideas, I could do this and I could do this, I could do this. And then you bring in the undefined root center and it adds in, and hurry up because I've got to do it now. So you can see where I was getting myself in a mess, right? So when we look at these other centers, there's a few other things that you might want to be aware of. This one, the willpower center, for example, if that one is white, again, the person doesn't have consistent access to the energy of willpower. So especially if you're working with that person for weight loss, for example, then you might want to talk to them about choosing to use their willpower on the decisions that matter and setting in a ritual or a system for the things that don't matter so much. Just like Obama would always wear navy colored suits when he was in office, right? Is because he had so many decisions to make. He minimized those decisions he didn't need to make, like what to wear in the morning. Yeah. So in the same way, get your clients to decide at nighttime what to wear, what to have for breakfast, all of those things that they can put a system around so they can save their willpower for maybe snack time after dinner when they're really going to need it. The other thing to be aware of as well, or with this root center, is if it's colored in, then people do really well with deadlines. And if it's not, then deadlines are just super stressful. So that's just something else to be aware of as well. So when we go back and look at those themes of all of these different centers, you can see being undefined, the pressure to find out the answers and figure everything out. The anjana, if that's undefined, you've got the need for certainty and taking on the limiting beliefs and opinions of others. The throat, the fear of not being heard, trying to attract attention, or the converse is actually repressing things and staying in silence. The G center is feeling not loved for who you really are, searching for love and identity and direction. You might hear them saying something like, oh, if I can just meet the perfect guy, then everything will be okay, right? The ego, again, that access to willpower, but also feeling that need to prove yourself. And that's where imposter syndrome and self-doubt can really kick in. The solar plexus has an emotional wave. And if you have it defined, then you'll be quite aware of that emotional wave because it comes up consistently, right? So that's where it feels really great. You get really excited and then it troughs down and you feel really flat and low, and you've got to wait till that neutral spot in the middle before you make important decisions. If you have it undefined, then again, you can take on the emotions of other people around you, or maybe you fear not feeling anything, or you repress your feelings. That can come up as well. Doing these behaviors to avoid feeling your feelings, right? Like, drinking, or, over exercising, or whatever these, overdoing types of behaviors are that they often come for hypnotherapy for. All right, the spleen can be picking up on other people's fears it can be a disconnect from their intuition, a disconnect from knowing what is healthy for them. So you can know that if you've got a client who has a defined spleen, and again, using weight loss as the example, they'll know what they need to do deep inside. They'll know what they need to eat in order to be healthy. They'll know how they need to exercise to be healthy. If they have an undefined spleen, then they might be disconnected to that and need a little bit of help. They'll also perhaps have a big need for safety and security. So you might, for example, want to make sure that you start your session by creating a safe place or a feeling of safety. All right, the sacral can lead to burnout, overworking, and exhaustion if you have an undefined sacral, because you're trying to keep up with the energizer bunnies in the world. Maybe you don't have that consistent access to your sacral, like you're a projector, for example. So you need to honor your natural cycles and allow yourself time to rest and regenerate. And the root, again, that pressure to hurry, being really affected by stress from the outside world. So you're going to want to talk to your clients about boundaries, for example. For me, my mum always called me lazy. So there we go. There's that guilt for laziness about not getting things done, procrastination, right? Okay, how are we doing, team? Awesome. All right, let's just quickly talk about splits. Now, splits is, as I say, if you start looking, if you're starting to get a bit of an interest in human design and you go down the rabbit hole on Google, you'll probably find quite a bit in there about centers, about type, about strategy. You might not find quite as much about splits, but I wanted to include it tonight because, as I mentioned earlier, this is the thing that really clicked everything into place for me. So you'll find if somebody has a split, you will find it actually listed here on their chart. So definition actually refers to how many segments of definition you have in your chart. So let's just go back. So you can see here when it says segments of definition, what that means is you've got defined centers that might be connected to one another. So where they're connected to one another by a channel, that's like a segment, right? So where we're looking at splits is, are they all connected through and therefore the energy is flowing nicely and they're all talking to each other? Or are these connected centers kind of floating around isolated from each other? That's what we're looking at. So again, you can see it right here. So it's called definition usually in the description on a chart because it's those chunks of definition that it's talking about. So if you look here where it says definition, you can see for me, I'm a triple split. So there are 4 types of splits that can happen. There's a single, which means the bits are connected to each other. You've got a split. So in other words, there's 2 bits that are split from each other. A triple split and a quadruple split. And of course, you can also have somebody who has no centers connected to each other. That person, of course, will be a reflector because they don't have anything defined. So when there's a split in definition, it just means that it's breaking up the energy flow or the conversation between all of your defined centers. So if your solar plexus is split from your throat, it might be therefore more difficult to express how you're feeling, for example. So the rule of thumb is the more splits a person has, the more internal voices and the slower the speed of implementation. So if someone like me is a triple split, it's appropriate that it takes them a little while to get going because they've got 3 voices to try and bring all together to make sense. Okay, so a single split is someone who has single definition. In other words, where their centers are fully connected to each other, there's just one section of that. So these ones talk to each other quite nicely. So it might be just 2, it could be more that are connected. But when somebody has single definition, it means that they have just that one internal voice. There's that feeling of wholeness within them, and they're not dependent on other people to process things, to bounce off, to make decisions, or to feel complete. So if you've got somebody who has a single definition, then you'll know that if you're looking at helping them with the healing, then what you want to focus your attention on more are the areas of their chart that are undefined, where they might have brought on other people's stuff. Yeah, other people's emotions, other people's ideas about willpower, other people's identities, other people's fears. You see how it goes, right? All right, somebody who is a split definition means that there's a split in between them. So there's two segments that aren't fully talking to each other. So somebody with a split has the potential to be codependent when they find someone who bridges their split. So bridging the split is what Justine does for me, right? So bridging this split here in this case would be having gate 26. So what that would mean is it's going to color this one in when they're together, which means that suddenly these three centers are all now talking to each other nicely. Does that make sense? Yeah, cool. So as you can see though, because there's one person with this gate, somebody, when you're with that person and suddenly you feel whole, you can see why somebody could start to feel codependent with that person, right? So that's where you will want to do some of the work with them about understanding their own sense of self-worth and knowing that they don't need just this one person to be whole. So you still want to look at the undefined centers, but what you'll really want to look at is this gate 26 in this particular scenario. So the bit that needs to be colored in, that's where this person will probably have quite a bit of healing work to do around the theme of that gate. Now, again, we're not going deep into gates tonight. We don't have enough time for that. You could just Google Human Design Gate 26. And there's heaps of information out there to give you an idea of the theme of that gate. All right, the triple split. So as you can probably guess, that means that they've got three sections of defined centers which aren't talking to each other. So that means that they have three different voices within them all at the same time. It means they're constantly processing all types of information and they feel out of sync. Triple splits work well when they are out in the environment, out absorbing the energies of the people around them. So if you're working with somebody who's a triple split, maybe they have found somebody like I found Justine who completes them, but also they can also tap into this by being out and about. So especially if you've got somebody with anxiety, for example, who tends not to go out in public, but they're a triple split, they will probably actually do well energetically if they can get to a point where they can, for example, go and sit at a cafe. So they don't need to go and talk to other people. They just need to be physically around them to be able to borrow their energy to complete their splits. So because there's so much going on here, they'll often need several bits colored in to connect their energy. And because of that, they'll often have heavy conditioning, more so in their undefined than in the splits, because there's so many of them, right? So for this person, I would focus my healing work on thoughts and ideas and identity, direction, and self-love. Yeah, makes sense? Cool. All righty, quadruple splits. As you can imagine, 4 different sections going on for these people, only 0.5% of the population. And you can imagine how overwhelming it must feel to have 4 different conversations going on in your head all the time. 4 voices. So with these people, there'll be just a few people who will complete them, right? Because there's so many things that need to happen there. So they'll do better when they can have that tight group of people that that really complete them, rather than like a triple split going out and being in the public arena. All right, how are we doing, team? Awesome, we're doing amazing. Right, there's just a couple more things that I wanted to bring in, hoping that it would be really useful. Now, this is again a higher level, but I just thought it was quite interesting to use and to have in mind with your clients and your programs, just to help with, again, just maximizing the work that you do with people. So looking at these little guys up here, when you have your chart, you can see these arrows. Now, all of these arrows, again, have lots of different layers to them, but the general gist is if they're pointing to the left, then they're masculine, right? They're active, they're more controlled, they're more structured. And if they're pointing to the right, then they're the passive, the feminine, the less structured and more flow. So we're going to look at two of these arrows tonight, which I felt are particularly relevant to the clinic setting. So this one here on the top left is the arrow of digestion. So this one is about how you absorb and process things. So that includes information as well as food. So if you've got somebody who has a left-facing arrow, then they're an active learner and they need repetition in order to learn something. So in an obvious setting, this is helpful to know if you're helping teenagers with exam prep, for example. But also, you know, if you're wanting your clients to learn something, to do tasks, bring on a new habit, if they've got a left arrow, you want to get them doing that repetition of that habit every single day. Left facing also thrives on consistency, routines, and regular fuel. So if you're doing weight loss with a person with a left digestion arrow, then they're going to need regular food, right? They'll be better off having, like, you know, 6 smaller meals, for example. In comparison to that, if you're working with somebody who has a right-facing arrow, then that person can limit, or they need to limit, the amount of information and food taken in at any one time. They are more passive in how they learn. They can focus on one thing and then just remember it. They'll be best studying by reading something and then going and doing something else, like going for a walk, where the mind can be ticking over in the background, processing everything, rather than sitting there and cramming with flashcards. So somebody with a right-facing arrow, again, because they do better when they limit they take in at any one time, they perhaps might do much better with fasting, for example. And the other arrow that we'll look at tonight is the bottom right one. So this is for perspective. To know that if your client has got a left facing arrow, that means that they do best being really specific. When they have that left facing arrow, then with goal setting, you want to be really specific. Exactly how many kilos do you want to lose by when? If you're manifesting, you want to create a Pinterest board and you want to map out exactly what you want your ideal home to look like, right? You want to really get clear on all of the details and create a really specific picture. Same thing if you're doing future pacing with that client, you want to get in and talk about all the details, right? What color is the carpet? All those things, whatever it is. If they have a right-facing arrow, then they have a more broad perspective. So with goal setting and future pacing, you want to focus on the general gist of the goal and the feeling that it engenders, right? So you're not going to worry so much about doing a future pacing where you're talking about the specifics of the outfit. You're just going to focus on they're wearing their favorite outfit and they feel amazing. Make sense? Awesome. Okay, so just to recap, guys, so the energy type, this can help us to know, for example, do we need to ask them yes, no questions if they're a generator or a manifesting generator, or if they're any of the other types, we can ask them open questions. They can use their strategy for making decisions as well. So again, if you've got working with a generator, you want to give them some things to respond to. If you are working with a projector, then you want to provide invitations for them. Paying attention to their signature feeling, where is it showing up for them? And paying attention to their not self feeling as well. Where is that showing up for them? And also go deeper. What's the root cause behind it? You know, are they feeling frustrated because the dishes aren't done? Or are they feeling frustrated because they feel unseen by their partner who didn't even do the dishes, right? Okay, the centers, where are they undefined? And that's a clue for you. What themes might come up in the session that would be a signal that there's some healing work to go deep into there. And what splits do they have? What definition? What do they need in order to create one cohesive voice, which will allow them to feel whole and to take action? And which arrows, which way are they facing? Are they left, masculine, active, or right, passive, feminine? And how can you take this into account when you're creating their program? So what's next? I have created a copy of a cheat sheet that you can use with clients where you can take this to prep for your session. So you can have a little sheet there with everything noted on there for each client that you're working with. And if you'd like access to today's slides as well, because there is a lot of information on there, a lot to go through, then just send me an email, info@vickysantiago.co.nz, and I'll be really happy to send all of those out to you. Awesome. All right, team, we've gone through a lot of information today. Let's see what questions we've got opening up the floor. Yeah, Cassandra.
Hey, thank you. This was lovely.
Awesome.
Really interesting. So I'm just curious with the splits. So my definition is split, and I just wrote on the chat like five white shapes, and I can see only 2 connections, and all the rest are like disconnected. So, but it's defined as a split. So where do we actually look for the splits?
There will be 2 different sections. Without, I don't know if you can upload your chart or you want to send it to me later. I can have a look for you. Have you got anything defined in the top 2 on your head? That's someone that we often miss.
So I have, okay, let me check. I have a defined, would you like me to share the screen if it's going to help others too?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, if you have it there.
I have it here. So it says it's disabled.
Oh, Justine, are you able to fix that?
Yep, I've just sent a co-host invitation.
Let's see if I can share it now. Yes, I can share it now. So that's, yeah. Can you see it?
Let's see. Yeah, so you've got the channel there going from your solar plexus to your sacral. And then the other one is up here from your ajna, so up by your head to your throat.
So I'm just like, when I look at here, I see lots of disconnect, but it says only split. So I didn't quite get how you define the split.
Oh, so it's Yeah, it's where you've got ones that are joined together.
Mhm.
So you've got a joined together set at the green triangle
Yeah.
and the brown square, which is your ajna and your throat. So
Uh-huh.
that's one set.
Yeah.
And then you've got another set down with the red square and the brown triangle, the sacral and the solar plexus.
Yeah.
So that's another set. So what you've got is called a wide split. So they're quite far apart.
Right.
However, you'll notice that if you, I can't see any of glasses. Is that 36, I think, there? 35. If you find somebody, if you're with somebody with a 35, with gate 35 in the throat, then that will connect through to your the solar plexus, which is the brown triangle down the bottom.
Down at the bottom is 36 at solar
Yes.
plexus.
Yeah, so if you find somebody who colors in the rest of that line, then you'll have, can you see, you'll have this connection from the top
Uh-huh.
to the, so from your concepts and ideas in the ajna will be connected to your throat, which will be connected to your emotions, which will be connected to your life force creation energy. So that will have one big talking point.
Right. So that's how you align. So can you do something with the white areas? Is there such a thing as connecting it all eventually?
The white areas will stay white, but you can borrow.
Oops.
That's me. I have the
Other-
35.
Yay.
Let's say you're with somebody who has that one colored in, or maybe
Sorry,
when you're,
Just, Vicky, just go back a little bit. We lost you.
oh,
We
sorry,
started
yes.
talking.
Downside of satellite internet is that when it's cloudy and stormy, it's a bit glitchy. So sorry, guys. So this, if you're with somebody who has the G center colored in, which is this diamond underneath the throat,
Mhm.
then you might find that you feel more sure about your direction while you're with them.
Okay.
So it's like you're borrowing their consistent energy in that area. Does that make sense?
Little. Okay.
It's just about, yeah, when we're not necessarily trying to color everything in, that's not the goal.
Mhm.
It's just simply when you're with somebody who has that gate, you might suddenly find that things flow easier.
Mhm. So this is also very good for finding like a business partner or life partner in
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's worth knowing. Yeah, now just remember though what it said about if you have a split, not getting codependent on that person who completes you.
Beautiful.
And just knowing there's lots of people out there with this, and you don't have to, like, as you say, you go into the supermarket and you stand next to somebody who has that bit, then that's good too.
Oh,
It doesn't have to be, you just literally have to have some proximity to them. You don't actually have to be in a relationship with them.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's okay. Just,
Vicky, can I ask a question?
yeah, absolutely.
On the two different graphs, websites that you've given me, my profile is different. I'm either a 2-5 or a 3-5, and yet I've put in exactly the same detail. So how do I get clarity about which is accurate?
Interesting. Did you went to, was it My Body Graph and My Human Design?
Correct.
I would go with the My Body Graph one.
Okay, cool. Thank
But
you.
also just have a look and see which one resonates the most.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. And the other question that I had is with the defined centers, what do the different colors actually mean? Because they're not just like red and brown, there's like yellow and green and.
Oh, it doesn't really mean anything.
Doesn't it?
No. Other places, like you may have noticed, the My Human Design one has got all different colors, and that's just the person's branding. So
Okay.
yeah, it doesn't
Cool.
mean anything. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries. Faye.
Oops. Can you hear me?
Hi, Faye. How you doing?
Yes.
Yep.
Hey, how are you?
Good,
Nice
thanks.
to see everyone. So I just want to go back to the very start, when you were talking about like your journey with human design and like in your business, and you said it was so it was this, and then it was also Justine. So was it like, when you uncovered things, then did you work with Justine to remove the traumas using golden thread? Is that kind of how that marriage happened for the breakthroughs?
No, I'd done all of that first. I'd literally done
Okay.
everything.
So it was,
And
so it
I
was an
still
energetic,
holding myself back.
thing.
It was just energetic.
Okay.
And I'm
Okay.
just seeing your question here. Justine is a single definition. So she is whole just as she is.
Undeniably, undeniably.
Yeah. So, I mean, as I say, I'd done so much work and it was amazing, but for some reason that I couldn't figure out, I was still holding myself back. And it was literally just energy. That was all I needed.
It was the energy, and I guess the awareness of like your intricate design, shining the spotlight on like the blind spots. So that was what shifted you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I mentioned about having all of the ideas, right? In the past, I would have these amazing business ideas and I would think, oh, I'm supposed to do that. And oh, I'm supposed to now go and do this other thing, even though I haven't finished the first thing. And now I can just let those ideas go and think, well, if they are for me, they're going to keep coming back.
That makes a lot of sense. And I don't want to have any limiting beliefs around this. I can definitely see the utility of this and how it can really, really guide like how you maximize outcomes with your clients. But I guess you'd need probably like a deeper understanding than what we would have now after this one session to really like take our clients to the next level, right? Like you really need to know what you're doing when you're interpreting the chart, right?
Yeah,
For it to have any benefit in the clinic.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot, as I say, a lot more you could get into it, a lot more than we can get into in an hour and a half, that's for sure. The goal today really is not so much to do a healing program around human design with your clients. It's really just you having a few ideas from looking at their chart of what kind of things you might want to pay attention to when you're working with them, doing the work you would normally do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, if people are interested and you want to go deeper, like I definitely would love to do more trainings around this topic. So I find it really fascinating.
It's very interesting. You said it came into your awareness because I have this little rule with myself. If I hear about something 3 times within like 10 days, it means the universe is telling me something. This is the 3rd time I've heard about human design in a week.
Interesting. And
Signs,
are you a
signs,
generator or a manifesting generator?
Manifesting generator.
Yeah, so there's you responding to something in the world as well and going, interesting.
Yeah, I'm listening. Yeah, I'm paying attention. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Vicky.
No worries, no worries. Kerry was just asking about my client and if she had the splits. I'm just looking at her chart now. I'm not going to share the whole chart for privacy reasons. She is a split as well, like Cassandra. So she has a reasonably big split going on there, which is interesting actually. Yeah. All right, what else have we got in the questions? Oh, who's got gate 36? I need to put you on an energy date with Cassandra.
Somebody said that they have it, but I didn't see who it was.
Oh, I was 35. I thought it was, I have the other part of 35.
Dang, you missed it. Missed it with one.
Yeah, if you have, Helen, if you have single definition, that just means that your centers that are connecting are talking to each other. Yeah. It means that you've just got that one voice going on. For me, as a triple split, what what having those three voices looks like is literally, it is kind of like conversations, you know how we might talk about having like the inner critic and the inner guide. It's kind of like that, but there's three of them all the time. So it's interesting how I can be like really excited and positive about something and really negative about it at the exact same time. Yeah, so it's an interesting one, and very nice to get a break from that.
Sorry, you just broke up a bit there.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry guys, the internet is not good today at all.
So yeah, so in mine I've only got two parts that are actually coloured and joined.
Oh yeah.
So and it, just from what you've said, it's like the sacral energy and the solar plexus, which means that I'm in touch with my emotions and my energy is consistent, and that kind of makes sense to me. It's like I do trust my gut and I work with it, and also with my emotions, and it kind of keeps me on track, so I'm less swayed by what else is going on around me or what other people might think about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. And do you have the information available there where it lists out? Like,
yeah.
Are you a generator, I'm guessing?
I'm a generator, yeah.
Yeah. And do you have solar or emotional authority?
Solar plexus, yeah, emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so awesome. The fact that you've got those connected to each other just means that you're a powerhouse. You know, because you've got all of what you need to make decisions connected to that creation energy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, the frustration thing makes sense too, because it's like at the moment I feel like I'm wanting to do stuff, but I'm not really pulled in any specific direction at the moment. So I feel like I'm kind of waiting, which is frustrating. So
yeah. Okay,
yeah.
Awesome. All right, so knowing that the generator's strategy is to wait to respond, your task, I suppose, is to just start to practice listening to your gut. And you can just start, again, when I say waiting to respond, you're not quite sure which direction to go in, for example, or what to follow. Well, it's looking at those options and starting to listen. Are you getting an aha or an to those options? If the response isn't super strong for you yet, you can have a play with it over the next week or so by literally like going to the fridge and looking at the things in there one by one and going, do I want this? Do I want this? Do I want this? Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And just starting to play with getting to know that gut response.
Yeah.
Remembering that you want something that's external in the outside world. So if you're thinking like, oh, I want to do a new niche, but I don't know which to choose. Well, then, like Faye said, this is like put it out there into the universe. Hey, universe, give me some stuff to respond to. And if you have this idea and you're not sure if it's coming from something outside of you, then just say, hey, universe, I'm kind of keen to follow this idea of whatever it is, signs.
Okay.
Yeah. Sound like fun. I ended up having nachos for breakfast one day doing that little experiment, but I felt so satisfied at the end of the day. It was great.
Yeah, I'm pretty good in terms of food and things like that. Like I just eat what I feel like and I don't have much judgment about it. But it's in terms of my business, I feel like I'm kind of ready to move in a direction, but I'm just not sure what that is yet. You know, I'm kind of happy with where I'm at, but it's like I want something more. So
well, yeah,
just keeping my eyes open.
Yeah, exactly. And start to notice how you respond. And the food is just an example of something that's, you know, not a big life decision.
Yeah.
It's something to play with. Yeah, it could be interesting to just throw, whether you want to write some ideas on a piece of paper or just pay attention to what's coming in. Even things like, you know, marketing emails from people or whatever, you could say, oh, is this area interesting for me? Or you know, social media posts from people. Oh, is this area interesting for me? Go with what lights you up and what does excite you. Yeah.
The lights me up thing is good because I kind of often will deny myself of those things thinking that it's a distraction. but
Mm,
maybe it's not. Maybe that's actually the direction I should be going in.
yeah. Yeah. What if you actually felt satisfied doing it?
Mm,
Mm,
good point. Thank you.
good luck. Awesome. All right. Any questions, guys? What else have we got? I'm keen to know from you all, what's one little key takeaway that you feel that you've got from tonight that you can put into action in your clinic? And in the meantime, while you're thinking of that, Cassandra, yeah, what did you want to ask?
Yeah, a question. So I'm looking at my chart again, and there are some numbers highlighted, and not necessarily all parts are looking at the fully defined ones. There are some defined ones with highlighted numbers leading to the undefined ones.
Mhm.
Does it mean that if I get a connection there, then I can actually link these two parts, although one of them is undefined?
It means that you can, access more energy. At the end of the day, though, it's perhaps it's about looking at what's the center that it's in and what is the theme of the one that is colored in, knowing that those are your gifts, those are your strengths, and looking at the one that's opposite, that's not colored in, that might be where you're taking on shoulds or ideas from society around that particular theme or topic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so if there is a highlighted number in between them, what does it mean? Does it mean that I have to pay attention to that one, and the rest, if they're not highlighted, not that important?
It means that's where your gifts are. So as I say, this is where the layers go deeper and deeper, because you'll notice the ones that are colored in, that's a gate, and you'll notice if you look on the sides, that will be matched with a planet.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is where the layers come in, because each planet has a particular theme in our life, and that theme plays out according to the theme of the gate that's colored in. And then you can see how this can get complicated quickly.
Okay, I see. Yes, I'd like to have a session from you later.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be lovely. Cool. All right. Well, you've got my email there. We'll get in touch and have a chat about that. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, I've got two people with hands raised. Who have we got here? Just unmute yourselves. Naomi, you got your hand raised, babe? You can just unmute, have a chat.
Hi, Vicky. How are you?
Thank
so
you.
this is mine. Oh, can you see? Oh, no, won't do it. I just had a question. The solar plexus one is white. So that means you take on, deeply take on the feelings of other people. So in like a clinic session, how do you not do that? Because you want to stay separated, you know what I mean? But you're so empathic and you feel their pain a lot,
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. I think awareness is always the first key, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just be aware, just because I'm saying you can take on the emotions of others, it doesn't mean that you have to. Mm-hmm. It just means that when you are, I guess, in the shadow side of it, that's what can happen. When you are in the gift side of it, then you are strong in your emotions and you're not easily led by them.
Got it. Yeah. So when you've got the intention of, I just want to connect to help you as much as I can, instead of I'm on the journey with you, it's like from one step out. Got it. Cool.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
And
awesome.
Just awesome. Just like we do in golden thread of symbols, when a feeling comes up, it's just asking yourself, is this actually mine?
Mm-hmm.
And if not, put it away. And I'm sure everybody here's got some great ideas of what to do in session to not take on your client's stuff as well, whether it's imagining a golden bubble of protection beforehand, or somebody once suggested to me just envisaging a massive bunch of roses between me and the client. Whatever it is that works for you.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Any other questions? Does somebody else have their hand raised? I'm just trying to have a look. Awesome. All right. Any last questions, team? Otherwise, we shall wrap it for today. But again, send me an email, info@vickysantiago.co.nz. I'll put it in the chat. I can send you out that client sheet and the slide, so you've got that there for your reference. And if you have any other questions as well, please just get in touch. So I can talk and spell at the same time. Yep, there we go.
Thank you so much, Vicky. That was awesome.
Oh,
So
fabulous.
cool.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I hope you all enjoy just exploring your own charts and starting to learn about this more and more. And I hope that you enjoy playing around with some of the concepts.
Awesome. Thanks, Vicky.
Thank you.